Good morning and welcome to the first edition of Business Morning. It's time to do business. I'm Ini John McQuarrie. We start our business from the global oil space. Prices rose in early Asian trade, bouncing off multi-month lows in the previous session caused by data signaling weak U.S. fuel demand. Brent crude futures rose by 53 cents at $97.31 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose by 55 cents. Also a 0.6% gain to $91.21. Both benchmark fell to their weakest level since February in the previous session. U.S. crude oil inventories rose unexpectedly last week as exports fell and refiners lowered runs, while gasoline stocks also posted a surprise build as demand slowed. On the supply side, OPEC Plus agreed to a small increase in the group's output target, equal to about 0.1% of global oil demand. And of course, that's a meeting by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies. They agreed to increase global oil output by 100,000 barrels per day to the market in September. OPEC Plus made the announcement at the end of their 31st ministerial meeting. That was yesterday, citing low investment in global oil sector, among other factors. The increase, which follows U.S. President Joe Biden's call for more oil supply, is the second smallest hike in the cartel's history. At the same time, OPEC raised Nigeria's oil quota to 1.83 million barrels per day for September, and that's up from 1.82 million barrels output for August. The 23-nation oil alliance is scheduled to hold its next meeting on the 5th of September. Meanwhile, oil prices lost 3% yesterday after that announcement. Back here in Nigeria, the Federal Executive Council has approved $2.59 billion for the development of Badagry seaport under a private-public partnership arrangement. The Minister of Transportation, Muazu Sambo, made this known while giving an update at the FEC meeting yesterday. Sambo said that the port would operate for 45 years by developers, after which Nigerians would take over. He adds that during the PPP lifespan, the project would provide about 200,000 jobs while generating $56 billion in revenue.
I presented a memo today at Council with respect to the development of the Badagry deep sea port under the public-private partnership arrangement, where the private sector will inject money for the development of the port, and at the end of the concessionary period, the port reverts to the federal government of Nigeria through the Nigerian Ports Authority. The project cost, as contained and approved in Council based on the final business case as approved by the ICRC in line with extant laws, stood at $2.59 billion. It is to be developed in 4 phases with milestones, and the concessionary period is 45 years. Reversion is, like I said, to the federal government of Nigeria. This is to further the government's goal of making Nigeria the maritime hub of the West and Central Africa sub-region. This project, it may interest you to know, will also generate a total revenue of over $53.6 billion over the concession period. It will create about 250,000 jobs and also attract foreign direct investments to the country and help in improving Nigeria's economy in general and the well-being of Nigerians.
All right, so other than the ports, Nigerians will start paying 12.5% tax on telecommunication services as the federal government plans to implement 5% inclusive excise duty on telecommunication services in the country. Now, payments are expected to be made monthly and on or before the 21st of every month. Well, at a time when income is already squeezed, but the government itself is seeking for ways to improve revenue. So how do we find a balance? We'll have Oladejo Adeyemi as a senior manager at Anderson joining us now to help us find that balance. Good to have you in the studio, Oladejo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ini. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so tell us, what exactly does this mean?
Okay. So it's good to always start from there, right, to know precisely what does this mean. The additional levy is actually excise duty, right? And it's been on for a while, interestingly, because...
So we're paying without knowing that we're paying?
No. When I said it's been on for a while, not that it's been implemented.
Okay, the conversation
The law,
has been
exactly.
On,
The law had been promulgated since 1st of January 2021 through the Finance Act 2020. You know, so what happened was that act actually amended one of the very key provisions in the Excise Tariff Act, you know, such that telecommunication services, you know, have then been added as part of accessible products, as it were. You know, typically, you know that excise traditionally has always been paid on certain kind of product, you know, so much so that in some jurisdiction it could be referred to as sin tax, you know, when you want to perhaps control the consumption of certain goods, you know. So,
things like alcohol, cigarettes,
absolutely,
like
you know, beers and what have you. So, but what is happening now, or what has happened by reason of that amendment, is actually a fundamental departure of what typically happens, you know. So that's why it's strange to a lot of Nigerians, and that's why it's generating a lot of dust, particularly because of the references that have then been made to it in recent times, you know, by key government officers. You know, that is then making it to generate a lot of dust. So.
Okay, so should we say that the government is doing this because, as we know, the nation is broke and we do need extra revenue?
You can say that again, Ini, because the truth is, government is looking for how to generate more and more from non-oil, you know, non-oil sector, and tax, of course, is going to be the major bailout, you know, in one of those areas. So, interestingly, government is looking for ways to continue to increase the revenue and looking for how to implement laws that have already been passed, you know, so much so that the quantum of revenue that is being generated seamlessly would increase.
Because one would ask, I mean, if it's since last year, right?
Correct.
And then this is the fourth quarter of 2022.
Correct.
And we're now talking about the implementation. It does ask, but let's see what it means for you and I, who make calls, who use data on the different platforms that are available in Nigeria. What does it mean?
It is exactly what it is, right? Because
you'll be paying 5% more. Or?
Yeah. So this is how it works. Typically, excise, you can categorize it as indirect, meaning the major manufacturer, as it is for products, for instance, the major manufacturers will be the one administering it, or will be the one accounting for it. But of course, as you'd imagine, the cost is going to be eventually passed down to the consumer, which is where you get the 12.5% from, because the tax itself or the levy itself is 5%. You know, but traditionally, there's been VAT of 7.5% on telecommunication services, you know, being qualifying services for value-added tax purposes. So when you then add that 5% to the 7.5 that has been on the ground, then you have 12.5. So in clear terms, what does it mean? Of course, you and I will have to be parting with much more every time we get any of those telecommunication services, whether it's data, whether you are making calls, you know, or any services, you know, any of the services at all.
You're going to be paying 5% more than what you...
Absolutely.
I mean, some people even say that the experience these days indicates that it seems with the hike or surge in operating costs, that the airtime you buy doesn't last as long as, even though we have not been officially notified.
Interestingly, right, you've actually seen, I mean, in recent times, I've seen some well-meaning Nigerians actually complaining, you know, about their data or about the their bonuses being wiped out and all of that. So this had not
if
even
still
happened.
Bonuses, that
exactly.
is.
So this had not even happened, right? And then you are having that kind of agitation. But quite frankly, what you are going to have, because even the Minister of Communication, right?
Yes, I saw
openly,
he's against it, yes.
Exactly, you know, and you would wonder,
since he's the
is
government,
not part of the, exactly. So maybe the issue, you know, the bulk of the issue really is about the timing. You know, this is the time when Nigerians are actually, you know, struggling with a lot. You have been hit, you know, from different angles. Just about 2 weeks ago, the fuel price, you know, went up.
Unofficially.
Unofficially, so to speak, you know, bakery associations of bread makers, and so, you know, so there's a lot of agitation.
And it's not just Nigeria. I guess it's also important to note that it's not just Nigeria.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're talking of recession, we're talking of stagflation, even in the UK, recession in the United States.
Absolutely.
In Europe, energy costs.
Absolutely.
You know, neighboring countries also have all of these challenges,
Absolutely.
inflation everywhere.
Absolutely. So Nigeria is just actually also looking for how to deal with its own, you know, peculiar challenges amidst all of these global issues.
Well, we'll get to talking about if this is the best way we could deal with it, because if the people are squeezed, the cost of living is high, energy cost is high, transportation, commodities, inflation is everywhere, then should the government be putting more, you know, on the people?
At a time like this.
Even though we do know that the government actually needs the revenue. But let's look at our neighbors. You know, sometimes they say, oh, it's cheapest in Nigeria. Why are you complaining and things? What's going on with the neighboring country?
So this is actually not something that is equally strange. There was a statement made last year, shortly before, was it last year or 2020, shortly before that Finance Act was passed, by one of the government officials, saying that from their own survey, you know,
I think they released a list.
Yes, it appears almost all African countries, you know, actually have this excise duty, you know, on telecommunication. You know, then when you look at bigger economies like the United States, for instance, you know, it actually subsists, you know, there. But truth is, can an economy like the Nigerian economy borrow a leaf from an economy like a sophisticated economy like the US economy? Perhaps not, you know. So, the truth is, the impact is going to be felt, you know, by every Nigerian, because that is 5% more than you are bearing, or you've been bearing before, especially when the telcos, and you know, there are just a couple of them, just maybe about 4 of them, especially when they pass it down, which is usually the case for most times. Excise duty is applicable on specific product line.
But, you know, we also agree that the government needs to raise money at a time like this, especially when we look at some of the parameters. Revenue, I mean, our debt servicing is now more than the revenue, so these are desperate times. But is this the best way? I think that's a question. You know, is this the only way left for the government? We know that tax is a major source of revenue for the government, but when we look at the peculiarities in Nigeria, do you think that this is the best way?
I honestly do not think so, and the reason is because there are several other initiatives that could be deployed, and truth be told, the government is trying and would continue to try its best. If you look at the informal sector, for instance, there's a lot of combing that needs to be done there, you know, and you can actually use deployment of technology to bring a lot of people into the tax nets. You know, have you, as a government, or as a nation, have we exhausted those options yet before we then start going into more and more marked taxes, you know, like we have just seen here? So to answer that question specifically, is this the best that can be done? I honestly do not think so. And I think there are a lot of well-meaning Nigerians that also believe the same way. That's why the Minister of Communication actually, you know, I mean, I saw the video, you know, it was like saying, no, this is not the way to go, and then consultations were not made and all of it. But like I mentioned, this had been passed since January 2021. You know, practical challenges relating to its implementation, it's what has probably delayed it to this point, you know, and then now government is trying to throw it out there so that the populace knows what is coming, and then maybe feel the pulse, before the actual implementation then happens.
Yeah, you know, looking at alternatives, a lot of people have also talked about if the government really wants to save money, you know, or look at the revenue, then there's so many leakages that could be plugged. We're talking about oil theft. Nigeria losing about $1 billion in the first quarter of the year. You know, that is one leakage. You're talking about even in the tax system, a lot of compromises. You and I know that. I mean, companies are charged this amount and then they go backwards and settle one or two people and get on with it. You know, I guess if these leakages were also closed, if these leaking taps were plugged, then perhaps the government might have more money in its purse.
You're right. And the issue of achieving efficiency, you know, after you've looked at the cost side of things, I mean, after you've looked at the revenue side of things, you also have to look at the cost. So your deduction is actually very correct to say, can you tighten the noose more? Can you ensure that you are efficient in your spending as a government? You know, can you ensure that all of the costs, you know, that you're actually making or you are expending, they are necessary, you know, for instance, and they are not, you don't have situations where costs are overblown unduly, you know. So you're very right. And then in terms of tax practices, in terms of revenue leakages from tax practices, to be honest, that happens in every part of the world, you know. But the question is, to what extent can it be managed? Can you reduce the impact? And that's why reliance on technology, you know, cannot be, the need for reliance on technology cannot be overemphasized. Because once you are able to separate the process is repetitive, and then you use technology to lock it in, it becomes very difficult for human to begin to meddle with it or tamper with it, or then become subjective, you know, to human feeling or who you know or how you do it. You understand what I'm saying? So you are quite right, you know, with that point.
And then another conversation has also been if the government, especially at the top, even in the sub federal level, the states can cut their running costs. Yes.
Yeah.
If we're desperate about you know, boosting our revenue and cutting down on expenditure, I guess we have to really look and not just look at the consumers. Consumers are squeezed everywhere.
They are squeezed, and quite frankly, it's easy to continue to mold the willing horse, you know, because you always believe you can get more and more and more and more. So because this is already tested, and if you look at this proposal, for instance, this excise duty, you know, the mannerism of recovering it or of getting it is going to be very seamless, because you're talking about just 4 telcos, right? They are the ones that are going to have the obligation, you know, however they fix it, whether they pass it down or they absorb it entirely. As a government, is not your business, you know, quote unquote. So you just want to be sure that they are complying, you know. So when you look at that, it appears there isn't much work that would be required.
So it's an easy way for the government to raise money.
Exactly, something like that, you know. Unlike having to put up initiatives that would make you comb the informal sector, for instance, you know, all the babalajes in Lagos Island market, and, you know, all those market women selling clothes and all that. So how do you ensure that every one of them, everyone that is a resident, you know, every company, every SME is contributing its own fair share to the purse, you know? That's something more sophisticated.
Some people will argue with you that those guys are already paying a whole lot. It's just being collected informally and going to different sectors. Because, I mean, you do have those guys who claim to be local government agents or something.
Yeah, right.
Also, you know, harassing those, we're giving them tickets every morning and every evening.
Yeah,
and those are taxes.
Yeah, you're right. But those taxes actually have different types. There are taxes that are collectible by states. There are taxes that are collectible by federal. There are taxes that are collectible by the local government. You know, at the local government level, maybe like levies, you know, and what have you. So if that's what they are collecting at those levels, then it's okay. But when you have small businesses, you know, and a lot has actually been done in recent time to bring those businesses into the tax nets, you know, because of the 0%, you know, if you're a small business, your revenue is less than 25 million, your tax rate is going to be 0%. The idea is come into the net first. So when you grow, we will then be able to get much more from you. Exactly. That
and I think another motivation for expanding that net is what are the taxes used for?
Absolutely.
Okay, for instance, the consumers cannot, well, almost cannot escape paying this tax, right? But what am I going to enjoy with this additional cost, you know, that I'm incurring?
Yeah, spot on. Like I always say to people, issue of taxation is a social contract. I play my part as a citizen, and I expect the government to also play its part. If either party fails, you know, there's going to be imbalance, you know, on the pendulum. And that's exactly what the challenge is with our nation.
Yeah, mostly. Well, thank you so much, Oladejo Adeyemi, Senior Manager at Anderson. Now, Nigerians should get set. I don't think we can escape this.
Let's see how it goes. Okay. Thank you so much for
we'll take them to court. It's already a law, so it's already a law. So I mean, we should expect to pay about 12.5% on consumption on telecommunication commodities, calls, data, and all of that real soon. But well, we'll see how that goes, and we'll follow up on the conversation here on Business Morning and of course on Channels Television. Let's take a break now, and when we come back, we'll head to the commodities space. This is still Business Morning on Channels Television. Yeah, welcome back. It's commodities time now here on Business Morning, and we have joining us Bolanle Agbaje to dissect the issues. Hi, Bolanle.
Hi, thanks
Good
for having me.
morning. Welcome to our new studio.
Thank you.
All right, so we see oil prices just going up and down.
Yeah.
After the meeting yesterday, it dropped. This morning, it dropped also, and a lot of factors to consider.
Yes, so obviously one would be the OPEC Plus meeting. It was more or less an insignificant, you know, output, increase in output. I think about 100,000 barrels per day, which is not necessarily going to move the market in any sense.
Joe Biden is not happy.
He's definitely not happy. But at the same time, you're seeing drawdown with on the demand side of things when it comes to, you know, the health and the economics of major countries. So I think that's weighing on prices, as we can see. But OPEC Plus has maintained the fact that they do understand that the sanctions that they've imposed on Russia would take full effect in December, and they are not sure what would happen, you know, to the supply and demand markets within that time. So they're trying to manage, you know, what the supply is in the market, and that's why you're seeing that they're not increasing supply the way they should.
Yes, and then talking about December, that's when Europe is supposed to win itself off. Yeah.
Well, we're not necessarily sure that would happen, because to win yourself off, it means that you're finding, you know, significant supply that would match or even be more than what you were receiving from Russia. So even with the sanctions, we don't know how much or if it'll take full effect by that time.
But we see them coming to Africa, talking a lot to Egypt. We saw the EU, I think they've been to Nigeria twice now.
Yes.
Talking about investments, even though we know it's a long-term thing.
Yeah, so it's something that, you know, they might obviously start on finding substitutes for the supply in December, but it wouldn't necessarily match the demand that they need at that moment. But obviously, within the next few months to a year or two, it will definitely, you know, they would definitely win off Russia, because I think that's where most countries are headed going forward.
But we also see there, we have the nuclear plants,
yes,
you know, also supplying power to some of them. We have them going back to coal.
Yes.
And then you have smaller countries, I think Finland and all that, going to wind. And they already had those investments.
So obviously those investments were already in place, because most countries were looking to, you know, adopt more renewable, you know, sources of energy. So that obviously would complement this search for new demand for natural gas that some of these European countries.
You don't see them completely winning off?
Well, not in the small to medium term. It would definitely be more of a very long-term plan, because it's not easy to build those pipelines that would act, and it's a high-risk investment. investment as well. You're talking of, whether they're actually building, the pipelines that would, be more or less protective of the supplies that they're receiving in terms of vandalism, in terms of, getting the pipelines right for the supply.
And it seems a lot of times when we talk about this, we don't look at the impacts on Russia. We know Russia seems to be in a hurry to, get them off their revenue stock. But we also know that this is affecting their income, the nation's income as Russia.
Yes, it seems like at this point, I don't think most countries care what's happening in Russia. But definitely, it seems like the government in Russia is trying to make sure that, their economy is protected at all costs. They will definitely be
They have a lot of buffers going on.
They
because
do.
The ruble is still doing well. Inflation is still
dropping.
Yes,
and that's obviously because, they knew, before the war started that they were actually going into, war with Ukraine. And I'm sure they had already planned for this type of reaction that they were going to get from major countries.
They learned from Iran and all that.
They definitely did. Yeah.
All right, and then we see that Naira rallies in the parallel market, 645.
Yes.
Yesterday it was 650.
Yes.
Is this good news? Has this come to stay?
Well, it's good news, but we're not sure it's come to stay. We do believe that it will still depreciate further. And that's just because, we saw this appreciation as a result of, significant, well, not significant, but about $8 to $10 million supply within the market.
From CBN.
Yes, and once that is mopped up, or once that, has left the market, we do believe that the exchange rate would actually depreciate further. Not to the 700s that we had seen, but it would definitely...
This is very close to 700.
It is, but we're not hoping that it gets to that 700 mark, because I'm sure the CBN would do, much more to make sure that it doesn't get there. But at the same time, our reserves are still falling. All prices have also fallen as well, and those are factors that actually drive this particular depreciation in our rates. And also, we're still operating in a very high inflationary environment, and that's not necessarily good.
And we don't see anything bringing down that inflation.
We don't see anything. Well, we do expect that, if inflation does rise to about 19%, the central bank would have no choice but to, increase rates further.
Okay. No, but yesterday we had a conversation here. We started saving the Naira.
Yes.
And we talked about this. And our guest then did say that it seems like more pressure on the Naira comes from speculative demand.
Yes. And speculative demand is in every currency. When it's a phenomenon that exists, but at the same time, it's almost like central bank takes speculative demand as a given and, work on other ways to actually increase supply. You can only, affect speculative...
So are you saying the central bank may not be factoring in the speculative demand enough?
No, I don't think it's not about factoring the speculative demand. It's more about finding, more sources of this particular dollar. The fact that the dollar supply has really squeezed, is more or less what has been. And obviously, the speculative demand has increased even way more than one had expected. But even, in the past few years, there was obviously speculative demand, at some point within the,
Could it be that more people are losing confidence in the Naira?
Well, you obviously have that in this kind of environment, but it's not that they would lose confidence and that would be the end. You can obviously, the country can do much more to, increase or boost confidence within Naira. And obviously, hiking interest rates would be one of them.
When we talk about increasing the dollar, I guess one thing would be non-oil exports.
Yes.
I mean, since oil price is going down now, even though it's still high compared to what we have in the budget.
Yes.
But, getting those non-oil exports will actually one major way. But that's also complicated when you look at the environment at
extremely complicated. But one good news that we have is actually on cocoa. I think our cocoa production is still ranging from about 240, 250, sometimes 260,000 metric tons per harvest season. But at the same time, we've seen a situation where Ghana and Ivory Coast have also they've implemented like a premium, $400 per any cocoa that is being sold from the from the country of origin, which is Ghana and Ivory Coast. And that is basically to just protect the farmers and alleviate some of those farmers from poverty. It's something that they've been going back and forth on, trying to create this price floor. But I think now they mean business, because if you're losing confidence amongst those farmers, then it will definitely affect the major source of revenue within those countries. At the same time, it means that the price of cocoa would, be set at about $2,600 per metric ton.
I think one question that comes to my mind as we're talking about Ghana and Ivory Coast is, are we taking our cocoa sector seriously?
I think so far so good we are, but we could be better, than what we're actually doing at the moment. Although you have, the major states, you have Ondo, Ogun, or some of these states that,
Cross River, I think Cross River.
Yes. They hamp down on the cocoa production, and they've done a good job at maintaining it compared to other commodities that we have the potential to produce. But definitely, there's much room to do much more. After all, before we spoke about oil, before oil became the trending topic, cocoa was our major source of.
Interestingly, we're going to have a conversation on cocoa, God willing,
tomorrow. It's a very viable, very profitable, commodity. And it seems like you already have the existing farms. All they just need to do is invest more and leverage on the productivity of those farms, and obviously the value chain, and making sure that the quality.
Chain, I think, is one thing that we may not have exploited at all.
Yes. And if it's a situation where if new investors come into the market and they see the fact that this particular cocoa actually brings, significant profits to some of their pockets, I'm sure, they would. And obviously, those profits are secure. It's not a situation where, the government comes in and they try to, make sure that, it's very difficult for some of these cocoa farmers and producers to increase
That's
output.
talking about uncertainty.
Yes.
Uncertainty. And then, of course, I think if we have that slide back, the aviation fuel is still a major factor.
And
the aviation fuel rises to 822 per litre.
This
is after Dana and what's the other one that is out?
I think it's Aero that had actually stopped. Yes. Well, this is more or less expected. We had seen the price of gasoline in the U.S., for example, decline from about $5 per liter to $4 per liter.
How come?
Well, that's because all prices are declining at the moment. So you should see that difference with or movement with prices. But it seems like when it comes to us in Nigeria, we're not actually following that trend, and that's just because of our naira.
Even though it's deregulated.
Yes, it's obviously because of the exchange rate as well. They have to factor the cost of importing, or the naira is not doing so well, and that would obviously be factored into the prices, as we can see. But it's not necessarily great. The cost of fuel, when it comes to the total cost of aviation, has actually increased from about 40% to 70% now. Some of these, airline companies are complaining. I saw, earlier that this is actually Aviation Week on Channels TV. So I'm sure, hopefully, something comes in with more or less the stakeholders, the government, and obviously the intermediaries to try and, make sure, because it's one viable way of transportation within the country. And if, a lot of airlines, especially domestic airlines, are pulling out or they become more expensive, it will definitely hinder, business activity within the country.
Of course. What's happening to diesel, though?
Well, diesel has maintained its level at about 785. Some
filling station on my way to work today. 780. I
think. So it's still stable at the moment. You have prices ranging from about 780 to 800, which is not so bad compared to what we're seeing in the aviation market, and both are deregulated. Although the price of kerosene is stuck at 800 naira per liter as well. So it's not necessarily great, but those, particularly diesel and kerosene, have been stable, but aviation was seeing, hikes, and that's just because of the attached cost to the price of aviation or jet fuel.
So talking about diesel, would we say, Nigeria, have we adjusted to this new price?
I think
because we don't hear a lot of talks about it. We see prices have surged, and the consumers have maybe cut down on demand to meet up, and then.
Yes, for those that, rely heavily on diesels, for most manufacturing companies that rely heavily on diesel for transportation of their goods, they've more or less adjusted. Some have actually factored, this increase in costs into their prices, and usually that's just what happens. And those that can afford it will, and those that can't, would more or less just sit in the back or look for substitutes, But right now, most of those companies that rely heavily on diesel, I don't think they have, they have immediate substitutes at the moment, because it will mean trading off your diesel trucks for, petrol, and petrol is not even as cheap at the moment.
And that's why, I guess that's what's influenced. I mean, the Stanbic PMI showed an increase from June to 52. 53 points from, it was about 50.
Yes.
You know, for
well,
June.
you know, obviously they have no choice. They can't just, you know, stop manufacturing activity. It has to keep going on, hoping that, you know, at some point, and obviously leveraging on, you know, the Christmas season that is coming up slowly. I'm sure.
Oh, are we already planning for that?
You know, most companies have to factor that in. If they want to, you know, increase supply significantly for that period, they have to start now,
wow.
yes.
All right, so anything else happening in the commodities?
Well, the commodities, you know, prices are still red at the moment. We're seeing significant increase in the prices, but at the same time, we do expect by beginning to the end of September, when the harvest season kicks in, we expect, you know, prices to decline marginally.
And we expect, I see there on your slide, additional revenue from cocoa.
The cocoa exports, yes. When the harvest season starts as well, we'll probably take advantage of this $2,600 per metric ton price flow.
Yeah, but we also see hike in price of kerosene
to worsen living standard, because you still have a significant amount of the population, especially the lower end of the population, still relying heavily on kerosene, especially when, you know, gas and other sources are becoming very expensive.
Yes, I think gas is back to about 10,000
yes,
now.
it has been, you know, as that, you know, it has been on that high level for a while now, and it's, you know, some of them would look for, you know, substitutes like kerosene, and kerosene is not cheap at the moment.
It's not cheap. Yeah, yes. That's if it's available. I think a lot of filling stations you don't
even
get them.
Now that costs are very high, some of them would only like to bring in, you know, the particular product that they will sell. And I'm sure kerosene, the demand for kerosene in comparison to diesel and fuel is not as high when it comes to, you know, those.
And then we expect a decline in our external reserves.
Yes. We do expect that, and that's just because of the declining, you know, oil prices that we're seeing at the moment, and the fact that there's a lot coming out of the reserves than what's going in, and it's unfortunate, but that's just what we have here. So for you to have a build-up in your reserves, it means that your exchange rate would have to worsen, because, you know, the central bank would more or less not have to, you know, remove money to mop up or to more or less feed into this market, or the demand for the market.
So when we look at, just before we let you go now, when we look at, for instance, today, the Bank of England is supposed to release rates.
Yes.
Of course, they're going to hike it.
Yes.
We're just talking about, is it going to buy 50 basis points?
Well, we're still unsure, because, you know, most times they usually...
Some people are already saying it's going to be a history-making rate.
Yes, because obviously the environments that we currently operate in all countries now is what we do, what we never expected, and they're still just trying to find ways to reduce inflation. It's high, very, very high inflationary environment now. You have so many diaspora Nigerians living in the UK complaining significantly about the high cost environment that they're currently operating in.
And of course, this has affected our remittances.
Yes, definitely. You don't have, I don't think, you know, this year would see a lot of, you know, visits from the individuals.
You don't have a lot of money being sent home.
Yes.
Not good news for a lot of people.
It's not necessarily good news.
All right. Thank you so much, Bolanle Agbaje, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you for sharing your wide space of knowledge with us this morning. We do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll head to the markets. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back. It's time to head to the markets now. And of course, we're starting with the local boss. The equities market yesterday reversed the gains that we saw the day before. Told you not to catch your breath. The market, well, I think gave way to profit-taking activities witnessed in Boa Cement. That undermined the market performance precisely. It was down 0.06% yesterday. There we see, I hope we can see the slide and have that figure on the screen there. So there you see, let's just take a look at the numbers. Yes, the numbers show that the market was down. The all-share index was down 0.06%. Equities cap is still around that 27 trillion naira. Well, I hope we'll get close to that. I don't know how the markets will do today. And then when we also look at the sectors, and I think we do have that, that's right, consumers, was in green, oil and gas was in green, but there you see that Boa Cement lift there, dropped. The industrial good insurance was also down. Banking, that's a shining star in the market yesterday, lost that glamour, but we hope it will get it back because it always gets attention. So when it goes deep like that, then you expect investors to take advantage of that. And see, let's see the next slide and see what the market has for us. There you go. That's the fixed income market. FGN bonds had 8 deals valued at 1.25 billion naira. Well, January 2042, January 2026, those caught the eyes of investors yesterday. And looking at the CBN bonds also, just 3. I don't know why the CBN bills doesn't catch a lot of investors. I mean, it's always, you have a low, most of the time you have low activities there. But 3 deals yesterday for the CBN bills. And then we have the OMO. The OMO also yesterday had only 2. A quiet market. Analysts have told us this has been a quiet market. Even the release of FAC has not really pumped anything into that market. We're still keeping our fingers crossed to see what will happen there. And okay, I think it's time to do the crypto now. Ladi should be coming in now. Ladi, let's give you the space now and see if you have, I mean, our fixed income space has been quiet.
Exactly.
Has been quiet.
Yes,
I know the crypto can be quiet.
Well, the crypto
you have
is,
Gen Zs there.
they
have too much energy.
Exactly, and we see Bitcoin still battling, you know, to stay above 24,000 at this point. But yeah, we've seen the
Don't
FT's
forget,
market,
some of the analysts have said it's going to get to, is it 14 or 18,000?
Some have even said 10,000, which is like, you know, maximum pain, you know, for all of those who have been holding, you know, since about 69,000.
Okay.
So they're still holding, and it depends on who's ready to buy the dip, and if you even have money to buy
the dip in the year of the squeeze.
Exactly.
All right, Ladi, I think I'll just yield to you now to take over for the market.
Yeah, so we see the sentiment in the market now. It's fear still at about 30 points, still better than what we've been seeing before. And now if you look at, let's check now the market cap there. See the market cap, $1.07 billion. That's down about 0.06%. And volume traded down about 5.71%. Bitcoin dominance, 41.02% we're seeing in the market right now. Let's look at the price of Bitcoin there. We see Bitcoin struggling there. It did get to that $23,000 mark, but lost it, struggled a lot there with the bears having major sell-offs, you know, at that price. We see it now at 22,950. We've seen Bitcoin still struggling. It's down 0.68%. Volume traded $26.42 billion. Let's look at price of Ethereum now. We see Ethereum there, $1,627 there. That's down 1.45%. Volume traded $16.35 billion in Ethereum. Let's look at the top alts by market cap. We see BNB there, $303. That's down about 0.75%. We see Cardano also about 50 cents. That's down 1.09%. Talking about the next slide, that's top alts by market cap. There we see it's red, and we see eCash down about 0.71%. XRP still holding there, 37 cents, down 0.79%. Don't know if I have Olumide additional now. Olumide, hello Olumide. I don't know if you can hear me. Financial market analyst. Hello Olumide.
Hello, Ladi.
Yeah, great to have you, Olumide. So we're seeing this, the bears still fighting off those bulls at talking about the price of Bitcoin. But now there's another big issue in the market with the Solana hack. Another hack, you know, on the Solana blockchain. A lot of wallets drained, you know, of hard-earned currency there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, as you rightly said, we're seeing this news around the Solana, which happens to be one of the leading blockchains, knowing fully well that it plays systemically in the NFT marketplace and other transaction spaces. So rumors is that we have over 8,000 wallets being compromised, and that has led to downward pressure on crypto assets. And pretty much, you know, that has really triggered more regulation concerns, because we are seeing the fact that the security audit in some of these blockchains seem not to be as what they look like. So investors are remaining shaky, and that's why we saw sell-offs in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and major altcoins. Also, news that China is also performing drills around Taiwan has kept global investors across risky assets, and that's why we saw moderation, particularly in the crypto market. So it looks like Bitcoin will need an uphill task to break above the 200 moving average, which seems to be unlikely as more information coming from the US Fed and the job market in the United States shows that all is not as well as it seems.
Right, and what do you think is going to happen with the price of Solana? We're seeing the price of that token actually plummet, after that news.
Yeah, we see the fight for the ninth biggest crypto asset by market value shows that it cannot break the 50-day moving average, and it suggests that it's very unlikely for us to see a $50 price mark at this market condition in the next coming days. So what buyers will be looking at is see if they can really trigger some pressure below 35. But if Solana can still manage to stay along the above the 35 support level, probably this might fizzle out.
Right.
But news coming from the blockchain says that it has nothing to do with them, that it's more the wallet exposure. But time will tell, Ladi.
Right, Olum. There's so much to look out for in this market. You have to protect your funds. Being your own bank is not easy. You have to also face the risk of being hacked, with some of these blockchains. But thank you so much, Olum. They will keep tracking that Solana blockchain. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now let's go to the top 5 gainers. Let's see who's topping that counter. Optimism, yeah, this one is top of the counter there. Is up about 25.35% this morning. Lido Finance, they're up 14.85%. And we see Phantom back on the top gainers list. That did get up to about $3 in the last bull run, but now we're seeing Phantom at 35 cents. Lost a lot of price movement there, and we see Near Protocol down up about 7.21%. We see TWT also in the top gainers list. Top 5 losers there. We see Rose there topping that count, is down 3.96%. Ethereum Classic, one of the OGs in the crypto space. So, Ini, that's what we have in the crypto space. It's not looking so good, not looking strong. We're seeing the bulls and bears battle.
You shouldn't expect any better because,
exactly.
the times are hard now everywhere in the world. Every market is feeling it. So, look at Nigeria's NGX. We're up today, and then the next day we're deep down there.
Exactly.
So it's
well,
not.
I'm still watching that 50K level, though. Let's see if it holds.
I hope it stays there. But your conversation with Olumide makes me think about what really is the benefit of decentralized financing, or because we complain about centralized, the government is controlling too much. Then you have the decentralized, and then you have all these risks that you have noted.
Being your own bank is not easy.
Being your own security.
There's no insurance.
There's no
if you lose your funds. If you lose it, you've lost it.
You've lost it.
It's still early days for that market. We'll see how they deal with all of that.
All right, Ladi, thank you so much for that update. I'm sure you'll be here at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. But that's where we'll draw the curtains on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And Ladi will see you at 1:30. I'll see you tomorrow, God's grace. So do take care of yourself and have a lovely day. I'm Ini John Mekwa.